Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. It is International Week and we are all here and ready for it. Craig Burley, Stevie Nicol, Kay Murray here in the studio. A little later on we'll be hearing what Howard Webb had to say about Fulham's disallowed goal against Chelsea at the weekend. 2-0. It's Germany's first ever away loss in a World Cup qualifier. It's not the best record so far for Julian Nagelsmann. They're in Group A as it stands right now. Far from ideal for them given that there are 4 teams in this group. Julian Nagelsmann needs to find a solution and he needs to do so quickly. Julian Laurent was watching this game for us as well. Jules, Nagelsmann needs to find some answers.
Yeah, things are pretty bad now. I mean, they started well and that 3 defeats in a row. I think for the first time in a very, very long time for Germany, if not ever. Even it's just, I mean, the first 2 in the Nations League, semi-final, and then for the 3rd place against Portugal and France. You could probably say, okay, they're big games. The one against France, they had plenty of chances, plenty of shots. It could have maybe gone their way in that one. I mean, tonight, I'm just not sure. If you look everywhere on the pitch, and you can just start tactically of his setup, what's the point of having Kimmich and Goretzka and Stiller in a team like this to play Wirtz on the left-hand side, certainly out of possession, Woltemade on his own up front? It's just, I don't think he worked at all, and he keeps tweaking his teams and changing. We've seen a back 3, we went back to a back 4. I mean, Rudiger, the boys mentioned it during the highlights, was all over the place today, and really the first goal is a disgrace defensively from the whole, especially from Rudiger, but the whole Germany team. The second one in transition is not much better, and yet towards the end they had a bit more chances because they put pressure and they pushed, and Slovakia just played deep to defend their lead, and even that was quite sterile from Germany even. So I'm not sure where you go from here, but it's a terrible start of the season.
You look at that German side right on paper and you just think absolutely bang average. I mean, you think about historically, and that's all we can do is sort of look back at some of the great German sides, and there have been. And you used to look at them and think they were big and strong and fast and played good football and had top quality players in every position. They don't. And so, yeah, I mean, the manager obviously has got a lot to answer for. His record is not great coming off the back of Hansi Flick. But unless there's a bunch of players he's not picking that are going to come in and be better than this, there's actually not a lot there if we're being honest about it.
I think I'm with Jules. How are you playing Goretzka through the middle, supposedly in an attacking position, when you've got Julian Wirtz in your team? Albeit a Julian Wirtz who hasn't started that well. Florian, I beg your pardon.
Well, Julian, you'd be a good player as well, wouldn't he?
Might be all right.
Julian hasn't started that well for Liverpool.
Who, Julian?
But why are you putting him out on the left? You had to have known coming into this game that you were going to have 70% of the ball. You had to know that. So why are you playing somebody like Goretzka as an attacking midfielder? It makes no sense at all. And other than the clip that we showed of Wirtz with that opportunity, with 70% of the ball, they had. It says they had 13 shots. I can't remember 13 shots. And if there was 13, I don't think the goalie had anything other to do than throw his hat on any of them. And actually, Slovakia had 2 great chances at 0-0. This could have been more, and maybe should have been more, regardless of how much of the ball Germany had. But they did absolutely nothing with it, and they got exactly what they deserved. Or certainly Nagelsmann did, considering the supposed attacking lineup he put out.
Do you think Nagelsmann's another one of these coaches that tries to be too clever?
Looks that way.
Tries to overthink these. He came through with this great reputation. I think it was Hoffenheim initially. Then he went on to Bayern, obviously, and then to the German national team. And he's been talked up as this great innovator and all this sort of stuff we've seen here. Most of it nonsense. And it just seems to me that, when you look at other teams that have been successful recently, particularly Spain and France, and they have an identity about how it's not always perfect, but they have an identity about how they go about it. It just seems to me, watching Germany, that he's another one of these managers that I think tries to always outfox the opposition by doing something that is just different and doesn't actually suit the team, like the Goretzka scenario, like the Florian Wirtz scenario. And I think, looking at their squad of players, the German teams have always been about doing the basics really, really well. and then going from there. He seems to be trying to go at it from the opposite direction. And, you know, they'll probably qualify for the World Cup. Of course they will, barring a disaster. But looking at them in general over the piece, I don't really see them coming to North America and threatening, if I'm being honest. And that's really not where Germany want to be.
How concerning is it for Germany, Jules?
Yeah, I think it's quite concerning because, again, you could look at the Nations League back in June and say, OK, Portugal, France, we're not going to repeat what we just at the start of the show, but it can happen. But Slovakia, 52nd in the world. Yes, they had a good Euros and they should have knocked out England in the last 16. They didn't, but still, you know they have a bit of momentum, but they're still not a great team. You know, let's be honest here. They have decent players up front, solid defenders at the back. But nobody thought, OK, Germany are going to struggle that much away in Slovakia in September. And yet they did. And they did because, once again, Nagelsmann could not find the solutions. I mean, he got it wrong from the beginning. We've said that. But even during the game, he waited an hour to replace one of those midfielders by an attacking player in Amiri, for example. Well, so you wait to be 2-0 down, where at half-time we could all see that thing that was just not working. The first half from Germany is a terrible half. The expected goal is 0.5. They don't control anything. They hardly be threatening. And yeah, you still wait another 15 minutes, and by then you're 2-0 down to start thinking, maybe I should have a bit more impetus going forward. Maybe I should replace one of those three quite defensive-minded midfielders, Ryan Stiller, Kimmich and Goretzka, by somebody a little bit more attacking. By then, it was just too late. Then Slovakia defended with 11 men behind the ball. They were even comfortable doing that because there was just no spark from Germany at all. So Nagelsmann, you can expect the media in Germany, the newspapers and all of that to be really, really offensive tomorrow against him. And rightly so. And again, we've seen it coming, even if before you could find excuses in a way because they lost against top countries. It's not the case tonight. It's an embarrassing defeat for Germany, really.
Yeah, no doubt more questions to be asked of Julian Nagelsmann, as Jules says, in the German media tomorrow. Make sure you are with us when Bundesliga returns to action. We'll have wraparound coverage to kick things back off as Leverkusen, with no Ten Hag now, take on Frankfurt, who are seemingly the team that will be challenging Bayern the most this season. This is what else will be happening across that weekend. All of the games available, as always, on ESPN+. What he had to say after Germany losing their game against Slovakia, he said, maybe next time we have to call up players with less quality, but who will give everything on the pitch. I trust my players, but being simply a better player than the opponent is not enough if you don't show willingness and desire. Wow, Stevie, what do you think of this?
It's not my fault. It's them out there. Don't look at me. Go and ask them. That's all he said.
I've done my bit. This is a classic. I mean, the tactics were spot on.
I don't kick the balls. I don't chase people. I don't tackle people. What are you asking me for? Go and ask them. It's their fault. That's what that was. 100% thrown under the bus.
Jules, what do you make of what he said here? Getting players with lesser quality. Maybe they'll do a better job.
Yeah. Hello, Tony Rudiger. Yeah, did you see what Julian Nagelsmann was just saying? Yeah, it might have been talking about you. This is it, exactly. The boys are right. It's just pointing fingers at his players when his tactics and his game plan was rubbish. And I think he's right as well. I mean, we watched the game. We explained the defending or how poor the defending was. But yeah, it's just, again, I don't think the reaction and the communication that you would expect from a manager like him or head coach like him after a third defeat in a row.
No, absolutely.
I think players would have a bit more respect if he came out and said, look, that's how you lose players. Stevie said it.
Yeah.
You know, because players read these quotes and journalists bring them up and blah, blah, blah. I think you get a bit, even if you don't like him or you think he's tinkering or whatever, I think if he came out and said, listen, I picked the team. It's on me. I have to take the responsibility for it, and it's my job to make some big decisions going forward. You know, the players will accept that, but you know, coming out and just basically driving the bus over the top.
And it's as the coach, it's really easy to do that. Because any other way you go, you're going to harm the relationship you have with your players. So for a coach, it's the easiest thing in the world to come out and put the blame on yourself. And then you're not putting any blame on the players. So the next time you get them, you can go around them. They're still wanting to listen to you. They'll still follow you. But then when you do that, the next time they're coming in, Here we go.
Well, it's not like he's doing. It's not like
Here we
he's,
go.
it's not like he's. I don't want to labour this, but it's not like he's done that, and all of a sudden, as Jules mentioned earlier in the show, in terms of the German press tomorrow, it's not like he's now deflected, and the press will go, "Oh, hold on a minute. I think we'll change course here and slam the players." Nagelsmann's getting it anyway. I mean, I'm sure the players will get their fair share, as we always did as players when results went wrong. But you know, he's not deflecting any of this. All he's doing is probably upsetting some of the senior players. He's going to get absolutely smashed from pillar to post anyway in the German press, whether he comes out and tries to blame others or not. So it's rather needless, I'd say.
So 3-0 it would finish for Spain on the road as well. They've not actually lost on their travels under Luis de la Fuente since 2023. That was to Scotland, guys. That was one for you.
Well,
here you
top place to go.
far. World Cup qualified Spain and Turkey, 3 points each in Group E. As it stands right now, we've got Sid Lowe with us as well. We know that Europe has already been dominated by the Spanish. Sid, World Cup in their sights now?
Yeah, of course, and bear in mind this isn't the Spanish national team that won 3 trophies in a row, but that's always the measure for Spanish national teams. So when this generation of players won the European Championships, immediately the question was, can they go on and win a World Cup as well? Can they cement themselves as the best team in the world? And I think tonight's game, it's very difficult to judge properly because in truth they were so superior to Bulgaria that it's difficult to pick apart how much of this is Spain being really good, how much is their opponents being really bad. In a way, you know, okay, funny enough, the best thing that happened to Spain tonight perhaps wasn't really the performance. It was the fact that in the second half they were able to bring on Rodri back from injury, Dani Carvajal back from injury, and Dani Olmo, who hadn't started the game. So even with 3 players like that who all would be automatic starters when everybody is fit, without them they completely dominated Bulgaria. Maybe a slight doubt at centre forward, but otherwise the side looks very strong indeed.
Didn't really need to break a sweat then, Stevie.
No, as I said, they had a couple of chances before they actually went ahead. And really it was one-way traffic. It wasn't even close. Yeah, and it's what we expected. Not a shock.
I think they're going to be the team to beat next year, Craig.
On the face of it, yes. Depends what shape the French team are in, I suppose. We've already discussed Germany. And then what's going to happen from South America? You know, Ancelotti in at Brazil, but they don't look the best. And, you know, Argentina, obviously, current world champions, but, you know, Lionel Messi, those years are ticking along. And so I think, yes, would be the answer, particularly when Sid talks about the players that they've got coming back and coming on and getting back to fitness. And then you look at the core of the squad, and there's quite a lot of young players in there as well, a good mix of younger players and experienced players. Under a manager who's had success, and there was a lot of questions when he came in because of coming from the sort of youth systems, stepping up to the senior team. Would he be able to take that forward and take them forward? And I think we got the clear answer to that at the Euros. So yeah, I think unless somebody puts their hand up, you know, I think Spain and probably France, but the way Spain are playing and have played for quite some time, has to be said, that they're probably going to go into the World Cup 2026 as the favourites.
Meanwhile, in Spain, let us take this opportunity to talk about what's been going on in La Liga, where Barcelona have dropped their first points of the season. In their opening game, obviously, they beat Mallorca, a Mallorca side who went down to 9 men. After that game, Hansi Flick wasn't happy. He said they only played at 50%. Then they beat newly promoted Levante, but they had to come back against them. And then they dropped their first points of the campaign with that draw against Rayo. This is what Hansi Flick had to say after it.
The most important thing for me is now when the transfer market closed, that everyone is 100% committed with this club and with this team, and this is the most important thing for us. No egos, because the egos kills every success. And I think last season we played as a team, as one unit, and we have to go back like this.
So here's the papers from Sport. Egos kill success, something that Hansi Flick has said there. Sid Lowe's still with us. What's he actually talking about here, Sid? Do we know?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, by the way, that Hansi Flick offers this up Nobody has asked him this question. Nobody had suggested that there was a problem with egos. He's the one that puts this, if you like, into the public domain. I think if you listen to what he's saying, he's talking at that point about wanting the transfer window to close, and he's been very, very conscious that there was a risk of losing players, Casado and Fermin. And in part, the context to his answer is about players wanting to go and players maybe believing that they deserve a bigger role. And so that's partly looking at Fermin, it's partly looking at Casado, it's partly looking at, I suppose, across the midfield, Gavi as well, because he's got a lot of midfielders who know that they won't necessarily get full minutes. But obviously this then gets extrapolated and you start looking at the players. Who are those players that, in theory at least, would have an ego? Who are those players that would see themselves as the stars? And of course, everybody immediately turns to Lamine Yamal. And they turn to Lamine Yamal. Why? Because this is an 18-year-old kid who's already being talked about as the best player in the world. It's an 18-year-old kid who this year has been celebrating goals by putting the crown on his head. And I suppose in that sense, it's inevitable that people kind of see the ego side of things through him. But it was interesting because Lamine Yamal was asked directly about what his manager said. And he said, no, I don't think he's talking about egos in terms of individuals. I think he's talking about us not having the structure right, not having the effort right. And so Hansi Flick hasn't told us who he's talking about, but I think it's too easy to fall into the trap of assuming that he's talking about the big names. I think he's talking about something much more, how would I put this, much more generalised, about players within the team being aware that it's about the team. And I think that has been seen through the prism of the transfer window and potential departures. And I think more than anything else, Hansi Flick is delighted that the transfer window is open and delighted that no one's gone, and is now in a position where for the next 4 months he can say, well, 3.5 months, he can say, that's it. We've only got one thing in mind now. It's not the future, it's not going somewhere else, it's winning and playing for Barcelona.
Well, it's not. I understand maybe he's seeing things behind the scenes as managers do. Yep. But it's not egos that where they've lost the goals to Levante, the goals to Rayo this season. It's not egos. It's just a bad defensive units. Now, he made 2 changes against Rayo Vallecano in personnel. Koundé came in. Eric Garcia moved to centre-back. Christensen came in. So he shuffled the pack again, and it got worse. They got worse, albeit they were playing a better team in Rayo Vallecano than Levante, as you said, newly promoted. Rayo Vallecano, and Sid and I were covering the game, they were excellent. And we did a little piece a couple of days ago on the analysis of their defensive unit, and it was a shambles. I mean, there's leaving space behind, and then there's basically having your toes on the halfway line, which is where they had it. So I get it. Maybe there's a couple of big heads in there who maybe need a little slap down, but that's not his biggest problem at the moment. His biggest problem is they have been so easy to play against, particularly defensively, that he's going to have to figure that out. And we touched on it a couple of days ago on the show with Stuart Robson. The big question mark is going to be, it worked great for them last year. They won everything apart from the Champions League, but has it got longevity to keep taking that many risks? And actually, we were talking about this, Sid. I think it was you interviewed Frankie de Jong after that Vallecano game, is that right? He said something very interesting when you asked him about
that's right, yeah.
He says something very interesting when you asked him about VAR. He says, yeah, it was a problem for us, and I'm paraphrasing, it was a problem for us because our offside trap is so risky that we generally catch people off by inches. And so we need VAR to make sure we're getting these decisions right. And I was kind of aghast thinking, that's how risky they are taking this. That the players are thinking, well, we need VAR to be working, because we catch people offside sometimes by 4 or 5 yards, but quite a lot of time, if you watch these Barca games, they're catching them off by a foot and a toe. And I thought that was a very interesting comment that he made to Sid at the weekend.
And actually, what he's coming out with there will affect that line as well. You know, when he's talking about, he clearly smells something going on with the Eagles. And when players start playing for themselves and stop doing that extra yard for the next guy, all that comes into play when you're playing such a high line. Because if you, as a unit, don't close the ball down properly, and there's one guy or 2 guys not doing it properly, that means the man on the ball has the time to stick it in behind. So all of these things come together. It's not watching the game, you can't really turn around and say, well, yeah, you can see he's not trying hard enough, or he is, but when you're sat on the side and when you know your players, you can smell who's doing the extra yard and who's not. I think that's what he's talking about.
Is that something that stood out to you as well, Sid, with Frankie de Jong in that interview?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Just very briefly pick up on what Steve's talking about. There was a moment last year, and I apologise because I can't remember exactly when it was now, that Hansi Flick talked about precisely that it's all well and good talking about the defensive line, but the pressure has to be really, really good all around the pitch so that the other team hasn't got time to look for the pass and time the pass. So they're having to play that pass under pressure all the time, and therefore the timing of the defensive line means you catch them offside and it's all cleared up. In terms of the Frenkie de Jong thing, I think that tallies with something else as well, which is that Frankie's talking about the fine margins there, and that playing with the VAR means that you can risk those fine margins, because if you trust yourself to get it right, you've got to be able to trust the system, in other words, the refereeing system, to get it right as well. And of course, if you haven't got VAR, maybe you don't risk it. But here's the thing, those margins are very, very narrow. And I don't want to labour this point, but we talked about this a little bit on the weekend after the Rayo Vallecano game. I think we may even have talked about it going up into the Rayo Vallecano game as well, which is that Flick is not yet sure about his best central defensive partnership. Why? Because last year he came to be sure of it. Now, it didn't start the way he intended, and it started because Ronald Araujo got an injury. But he had Kubasi and he had Inigo Martinez. And Inigo Martinez was the defender that, if you like, led the rest of the line and led the timing of stepping that line out, which of course is very, very, has to be really, really good, has to be really, really precise. And he's found that without Inigo Martinez, who's gone to Saudi Arabia, and he wasn't expecting this, Inigo actually stopped him on the flight on the way back from, where were they, in Japan I think it was, and said, look, I'm going, because this offer, I just can't turn it down. And so then he's put in a position where he says, okay, so who's my partner for Kubasi? But even then he's not sure that it quite works, because Araujo has amazing recovery speed but doesn't time the line as well. He's tried Eric Garcia at full-back, but at the weekend pulled him into centre-back, thinking maybe he can step up the line with Christensen, because maybe I'm not sure that Kubasi is the one to do it. And so he's still not in a position where he knows for sure who he wants his two centre-backs to be. And it's really important, this. It's not about whether he thinks Eric Garcia is better, or Christensen is better, or Araujo is better, or Kubasi is better. It's about how he thinks that line will get its timing right. And he's lost the player that led that line last year, and I think that's really, really significant.
Oh, Barcelona fans, every time every time that FC crew come on here talking about Barcelona, they can't get through a show without talking about the highlight. But it is so blindingly obvious, and sometimes last year it worked great. It did. Much to the scratching of the head of a few of us, we were saying, why are the other teams, and I know there was a little bit of pressure on the ball, but the Bayern Munichs and the Real Madrids and others really should have done a better job of getting in behind. Raya did a great job at the weekend. Easy Palazon in particular with some of those passes, and but for Garcia having a great game, they're losing that by 3 or 4. So it is a talking point, and I dare say at the moment is his biggest headache after this international break, is that, as Sid mentioned, is personnel, and also he hasn't got time. It's not like he's got 2 weeks now to go and work with them, squeezing up, dropping off, squeezing up, because most of them are away. So they all come back, he's got to shuffle the pack again, and hopefully they've got enough time to work on it. But I think what we do know, it's not going away. It's not changing. If it doesn't work 1 week, he's not going to not do it the next week. He's just going to try and make sure they do it better the next week. And we'll see if that is going to be the case.
Yes, we will. He's got some thinking to do over this international break. And then Barcelona are back in action against Valencia on September 14th. Real Madrid, one of the teams that are perfect so far, they'll be up against Real Sociedad. Same can be said for Athletic Club. They're up against Alaves. All of these games available on ESPN+. Atleti still looking for their first win. Jules and Sid back with us. What do you think of what Howard Webb's had to say there, Craig?
Just to be honest with you, if Howard Webb come on the TV, I'd just switch it off. People don't want to hear it. Well, maybe some people do. How about just making sure your referees do a better job and have a better understanding? I was intrigued by the VAR Michael Salisbury there. This really got me. He stopped Chalobah from being able to defend because he was on the ground. So and Xhaka brought it up, what if Muniz had gone and flicked a header on there and had bumped into Chalobah? Shoulders or whatever it is, as he's flicked a header on, the ball's in the air, bumps into Chalobah goes to ground. Well, we're going to stop the game because Chalobah's on the ground, he can't defend. It's contact. I mean, that explanation from Michael Salisbury on VAR about, he stopped Chalobah from defending, that's normal, isn't it?
Some of the explanations are nonsense. Like, I agreed with most of what he said there. But how can you turn around and say that he's Munoz is putting his foot in one of his own space, and Chalobah's coming in and putting his foot into the space that he wants. What does that mean? I mean, that's just absolute gobbledygook. At the end of the day, they got it wrong because they didn't follow their own rules. You know, the challenge that the foul was given for is completely subjective. You can go both ways. I've gone both ways on it. And VAR is not about...
1 second. What?
Hold on a second. VAR is not about going back to subjective contact or free kicks. It's about clear and obvious. That's their rules. And so there shouldn't have been any of that, because the rules that they've got... Webb has given the guidelines of, if it's clear and it's obvious, then we go back to it. If it's not, if it's subjective, basically, then you leave it alone. So basically, they haven't gone... the goal should have stood.
But it's not subjective.
But I have no problem if it's a foul. Well, it is, because some people are saying it's a foul and some people are saying it's not.
The head of referees has admitted it's not a foul.
Oh, because he's never got anything wrong before. Regardless, it's a subjective challenge. It's completely subjective. And that goes against the rules that they give to the referees in VAR. So at the end of the day, whether you think it's a foul or whether it's not a foul, they shouldn't have gone near it because it's subjective.
Sid, you're in Spain. What do you make of all this in terms of what you see out there?
Well, first of all, I'm glad. I mean, taking it from a Spanish point of view, I'm glad that it hasn't turned into a conspiracy, which is the way that all the refereeing decisions end up here. It's always a conspiracy. It's never just a mistake. I'm going to give you my personal view on this, and I should clarify here how I come to this, which is that I didn't see this live. I was sent this by our producer before today's show to have a look at this so that I could form an opinion to be able to discuss this with you. And I was sent the VAR discussion first, and then the Howard Webb response afterwards. And I must admit, listening to the VAR discussion, listening to two people who are clearly qualified referees and have watched the action, I listened to that and thought, well, that all sounds quite reasonable to me. Whether I agree or not, it all sounds quite reasonable. I understand the explanation. I understand the fact that they're saying, well, yeah, he's trodden his foot, and that's prevented him from being able to play a part in the move and defend, and therefore it's ruled out. And I just thought, well, that doesn't seem like a particularly big deal to me. Whether I agree or not, it seems quite reasonable. So to then get their boss effectively come on and be so determined that this was wrong was the part that struck me. Not necessarily that I agree or disagree with Howard Webb, but that he was so determined that two referees who are qualified to make a decision, who discussed the decision and agreed with each other, are fundamentally wrong, no debate. That was a bit that struck me, because I must admit, I didn't think it was particularly of a big deal. And then Howard Webb, it seemed to me, was treating this like it was a really, really big deal. And I just, to be perfectly honest with you, I just kind of didn't see it. And I think if I saw that foul in Spain, or that challenge in Spain, I think a lot of the time it would be given, yes. By the way, for what it's worth, I think a lot of the time it would be given by the referee, and it wouldn't necessarily need the VAR's intervention. So that brings us into a whole new dimension. As Stevie was saying, that debate about, it's not about whether it's right or wrong, it's about whether VAR should intervene, whether this is clear and obvious. One little caveat I would introduce here, which is what the problem with clear and obvious is that what is clear and obvious isn't clear and obvious. We don't even agree on what's clear, so it's quite hard to kind of properly come to a conclusion on when it should intervene or not.
Unless you're rolling the ball with one foot and you're kung fu kicking somebody with the other foot, I just don't see in a natural movement how that can be a foul. I just don't see it. And sorry, Jules, for butting in before you give your thoughts on this. Again, it's a bit like rolling the ball over and then knocking him over with your shoulder to the floor. It's not your job. It's not a foul if he bundles over and can't defend. It was an unfortunate part of the motion that Munoz's foot came down on Chalobah as he was in possession of the ball. Now, if Chalobah was in possession of the ball and he stands on him, it's a foul. There's no grey area. It's a foul. I just don't see any way, shape or form how that can be a foul when you're in the motion of controlling the ball and you are in control of the ball.
Jules?
I mean, Howard Webb's just tiring me. He's doing my head in. I don't want to listen to him anymore. Every time he comes out and said, we got it wrong again, we're sorry. He calls the club. We said it on Sunday night on the show with the boys. He calls the club, said, really sorry. I mean, Fulham would have been 1-0 up. They were the better team by then. For all we know, they win that derby, and it's a very different story. And yet, every time you apologise, and you know what? Howard Webb is the boss of those referees. he's their coach. Every start of the season, regularly during the season, he says, these are the rules, follow those rules. He just said it in that thing with Michael Owen. We had those rules, they got it wrong because they didn't follow those rules. So he's on him as much as the incompetency of Rob Jones, Salisbury, all the guys. I mean, last season was so bad in terms of refereeing, not just for us in the Premier League, but everywhere. We've seen it in Spain, in France, in Italy, everywhere you want. But at least they don't have the boss of the referees going on television to just say, yeah, we are bad, aren't we? We're sorry, we're so bad. Let me show you how bad we are. I'm even doing a TV show to show you how bad my referees are. And by the way, I'm their boss, but it's okay. Nobody's blaming me. I think he should take so much responsibility for how bad his referees have been for the last 18 months.
At least in Spain, we just switched the VAR off at Vallecano for 30 or 40 minutes. Do you know what I mean? It's nothing to see here.
Just to pick up on what Jules is saying there.
Go on.
Sorry, just briefly to pick up on what Jules is saying. I think that for me is the most striking part of this. And as I say, it's worth pointing out that I come to this late. I didn't see this live, and I see it in this order. So I see the VAR discussion, which, as I say, whether I agree or not, feels relatively reasonable to me in terms of discussion. But to then have their boss on TV. So if we're talking about poor refereeing, and we're talking about the various factors that condition referees and that don't induce them to referee well, surely one of the things that doesn't help referees, and certainly doesn't help their confidence and doesn't help their determination to take a decision and believe that they're right and to do it well, is having their boss, as Jules says, on the television, having a go at them. He's their boss. He has to decide, is he their boss or is he a pundit? Because in my view, I don't see how he can be both things.
No, they all want TV. Tim. Just quickly, Jules, does Michael, because I don't watch this guff, does Michael Owen push Howard Webb? I mean, really push him at any point?
No.
See, that's the point. That's another thing. They go on Premier League productions. I used to work for them, and they send Michael Owen in to interview him. Michael Owen. I mean, seriously, they need somebody to go. And I agree totally. He should just keep his head down, don't be on TV, and make sure his referees are making better decisions. But once you get him on, unless this is a sort of Premier League thing with the officials and you don't want to upset them, if that's the case, what the hell's the point? What's the point? But once you get him on, you've got to grill him. You've got to make it tough for him. Because if you're just making it easy for him, it's an easy day out for him, isn't it? Probably pocket a little check.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that as much as Howard Webb isn't going to stand on TV and say, by the way, at the end of the day, I take responsibility. I'm the one that trained them, and I clearly haven't trained them correctly. Now, if he'd said that, then he might get some respect from it. But instead,
but if I'm
Joe
grilling,
says he's thrown them under the bus.
I've got my opportunity. He's coming on to explain it, and he's having it. Right, we're nuts and bolts. We're stripping it all down, and we're going for it. And he's going to damn well explain all these things. And do you know what? If he doesn't want to come back on in a month's time or a week's time or whenever it is because he didn't like the questions, so be it. Everybody will survive. Everybody will survive. But if you get him on, make sure you're absolutely driving him into the ground for answers. Because it ain't good enough. And I know it's not just England. We see it every week in Spain. There's controversy as well, and I'm sure it happens all over the place. But from a Premier League perspective, being the league that is sort of showcased the most around the globe, then it just has to be better. And the referee, he might as well come on with a big sandwich board with writing on it, my referees are crap.
Howard Webb, you are welcome to come on ESPN FC if you would like to state your case at any time.
No, he won't.
Make sure to check out the latest Gavin Jules show wherever you do get your podcast. The latest one drops today. Levy stepping down as Tottenham Hotspur chairman after almost 25 years in the role. The papers here from tomorrow in England, Levy out, both headlines there on the back pages. Jules, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, this is an incredible story, really, simply because we didn't see it coming. Although Spurs have been through changes lately, we saw Vinay Venkatesham, the former Arsenal CEO, coming at the club to be the kind of the big boss, if you want. Although Daniel Levy was still the executive director, so very much in charge of the club. And maybe this is also where he started, or maybe he started earlier when the Lewis family, so Joe Lewis, who for a very long time through ENIC, one of his companies, own like 80 to 90%, depending on the years, percent of the club. decided to do some sort of big audit through the club and where the club was at and what was working, not working, and starting looking very much more into the club than they've done for many, many years with Daniel Levy, was pretty much the guy running the club on a daily basis. And the Lewis family brought in their own people in. And obviously, that's not good. If you're Daniel Levy, I think if we didn't see it coming, he saw it coming. And a few of the headlines in the papers for tomorrow in England here, he stepped down. He didn't step down. He was asked to go, basically, and he was got rid of. Let's put it bluntly. That's how it is. After 24 years of doing some good things, like the stadium, which is a wonderful stadium, even if it took much longer than what was expected and cost much more than what was expected too. Great training ground as well, one of the best in Europe. But also, as we know, for the last 20 odd years, a lot of instability, not much success, apart from a few years there and there. And that was probably not enough. And maybe more importantly, a lot of the fan base not really liking Daniel Levy.
What's your reaction?
I don't really know, to be honest. But I think if you better asking Tottenham fans, but I would imagine the majority, if not all of Tottenham fans, are pretty happy with this, are very happy with this. And I think that in itself sort of tells a story. I mean, Jules is right, the stadium is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. But some of the decisions that have been made, managerial decisions, new contracts, all the signings, all that, it's all under his watch. So I think from a fan base, I think they'll be I think maybe a little nervous about where it's going to go. But I think also happy that the Daniel Levy era of running the club on a day-to-day basis is over, and hoping from Tottenham's perspective that they're going to be somewhere back consistently challenging or being up there a bit more on the front foot than they've been. So I don't know, it's difficult to gauge behind the scenes how much change there'll be and how positive it'll be for Tottenham.
A new era, whichever way we look at it though, Stevie, a new era ahead for Spurs.
I think it's pretty clear-cut for me, on the field of play, clearly, Daniel Levy has got his hirings, his firings, most things to do with football in terms of trying to get Tottenham to the top of the tree. He's done a poor job. But from a financial point of view, he's done a fantastic job. So it depends what way you want to look at it. You said the fans will be like, I'm glad he's gone. But from on a financial side, he's done a fantastic job. So it depends which way you lean.
Jules, you get the final say on this.
No, what's quite ironic is that his last thing at the club really would have been to miss out on Eberechi Eze when Spurs were that close of signing him. But because Daniel Levy faffed again and tried to do it on the cheap like he's always done, really, in terms of signing, really great businessman to sell players and get a high price for them. But in terms of incomings, that's what cost Spurs to get Eze. And that's, again, I think that's just the highlight for me of what he was a lot about, where he could have done things much, much better for the club but he always had that thing in him to try to do everything on the cheap. And sometimes football doesn't work like this.
Nope. Well, no more Daniel Levy at Tottenham Hotspur. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time, International Week edition. Sid Lowe is joining us to answer your questions. They're being printed now. And Danny's going to make an appearance here on the show. Come on in, Danny. It's all right. All right. He's happy Spain won today.
Tell you what, I wish I could got a picture of his face. I was talking about that. Don't be the foul. Yeah. I want to see your face. There's steam coming out of your ears.
You don't think it was a foul?
I can see why. It was a foul, yes.
It's the Fulham-Chelsea game we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's only you and Frank Leboeuf that I am aware of on the planet at the moment. Maybe there are somebody else that thinks it might have been a foul.
No, Frank said it wasn't a foul. Shaka said it was a foul.
No, Shaka didn't.
Shaka did say it was a foul.
No.
Frank said it was a foul.
I remember watching that. I thought Frank said it was a foul and Shaq said it wasn't. But it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, it does.
So it's not that obvious.
No, it doesn't.
No, your face was brilliant though. Honestly, you were like that.
No. Sorry, Sid. It's late in Spain.
All right. In hindsight,
It's
guys.
late in Connecticut, depending on what your age is.
This one is for Stevie. In hindsight, does it feel like the signing of Florian Wirtz, might have upset the balance of Liverpool's team/setup? They certainly look more vulnerable in midfield compared to the strong combo of Szoboszlai, McAllister and Gravenberch.
I think Mr. Samuel is right now looks to be perfectly correct. It certainly does seem as though the balance isn't quite right. And it's up to Arne Slot to figure it out, whether that means playing somebody else, moving Wirtz, sticking with it, figuring it out some other way. But right now, it'd be difficult to argue that the balance isn't right because Wirtz is in there and not the old three of McAllister, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch.
For Craig, have you ever dealt with disorganisation at the national team level in the year leading up to a major tournament? How much does it affect players knowing the team and tactics aren't exactly sorted yet?
Well, this won't take long. No.
Yeah.
Would it stress the players out, though, if you didn't think there was a plan in place with the World Cup on the horizon?
I would imagine so. I have no qualifications to tell you otherwise, because before Euro 96 and before France 98, our squad was pretty solid, you know what I mean? So it kind of just ran like clockwork, not in terms of results, but in terms of, you know, what the squad was, generally what the team was, a few changes here and there. So no, I don't have any. I mean, I was at the, what World Cup was it when I was at South Africa doing the World Cup when the French team imploded? Was it Dominic? It was the coach, and they were all and they were at the World Cup, and then you had the Spanish story at the World Cup when Julian Lopetegui was basically fired because he was taking the Real Madrid job. And the players were actually there, but I don't know about leading up to it because I haven't had that experience. But I certainly have seen players implode during a tournament when, say, a game goes badly, the first game goes badly, and you're a big team expected to win. Things can change very, very quickly in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's international or whether it's club football, when it's a situation like that, the same rules apply. When you're going on the field and you don't know what you're doing, then it's chaos. Because everybody's going around going, what's going on here? Everybody's asking each other what's going on, what we're supposed to be doing. So that's not just about international football. I think any club as well, where you know the manager's lost the plot and he doesn't know what he's doing, then absolutely affects everybody.
Which team do you think the question for Sid's about?
Oviedo.
Yes, Sid. Through the first few games, do you believe Oviedo has what it takes to fight off relegation this season? With your head, not your heart here.
Yes, sir.
I've been trying to get my head around this from the very beginning, and the transfer window worries me a little bit because, of course, part of the analysis is about Oviedo, and I think Oviedo are a good enough team to compete. But also part of the analysis is about finding three teams that are worse. And I was starting to think, you know, I've got 5 or 6 candidates, but some of those had pretty good transfer windows. So you've seen Levante sign a forward, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. You've seen a response from Sevilla, although let's see whether that really makes a difference, who I thought could maybe get dragged into trouble. So with my head, I would say Oviedo will definitely compete. They won't go just straight down without a fight. But of course it's going to be a fight. Of course they know that there are limitations to that squad and limitations to what they've got compared to other teams. But I think they've got enough to give themselves a chance of surviving, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
You know Sid's the mayor.
Aye.
Oh, I know.
Say that.
I know.
He's the mayor.
Well, they're not the worst of the newly promoted teams in La Liga just yet.
There's not many teams where you know that piece we did in the Oviedo game where we saw Sid giving the speech, which obviously was some time ago. But when he walks down the street, people just come out of their houses and their flats and just sort of bow.
They fall at their knees,
They fall down at his... And he goes, rise, rise, child, rise.
Send your seed. Send your seed.
We love that Bicycle Diaries, incidentally, Sid. Okay, Stevie, what goes through the mind of a player?
Sid the saviour.
For some reason, you know, the image that comes to mind, we've expressed it like that. For some reason, the image that comes to mind now is Homer Simpson as Don Homer with the donut going, "Bless you." Anyway, there we go. So I've turned into Homer Simpson with these donuts.
Yeah, okay, I like the analogy. But what would your donut be, Sid?
Oof. Do you know what? There's too much messing around with donuts. A good donut is a good jam donut. No messing about, just good
Just
jam
a normal
in the middle.
donut.
Nicely
All
made.
right.
Enough donuts in this show. You don't need a donut.
Stevie, what goes through the mind of a player when they score an atrocious own goal?
Nothing. Nothing.
Dan shared your atrocious own goal against Middlesbrough.
I beg you, but it wasn't atrocious. It was a fantastic lob. What are you talking about?
We were talking about it the other week on Stump Stevie, and he's shared it today. Yeah.
These things happen.
You move on, don't
You
you?
move on. These things happen.
You knew exactly where it was and everything, though, as soon as we asked you.
Yeah. And it wasn't my fault, so it doesn't matter.
Sid,
Goalie.
can you ever remember?
What was the goalie doing?
Stevie did score an atrocious own goal. What's the goalie doing? Can you remember it, or have you forgotten it?
It's an absolutely brilliant lob, isn't it?
There you go. All right, that is Liverpool
See?
and Oviedo fan, Sid Lowe.
Remember all the good ones.
Craig, will Guardiola change his style of playing out from the back with Donnarumma? Or will he still be stubborn with a little wink? Remember versus Arsenal, playing direct to Haaland with Holding as a defender and Kevin De Bruyne too.
Remember the Arsenal playing direct to Haaland with Holding? You mean Rob Holding? Shaking your head.
Just answer the first
Yeah, that's
part
not
of the
really
question.
the question.
I think he means playing long to Haaland when Rob Holding was playing, but that was Rob Holding.
So will he change his style of playing out from the back, or will he still be stubborn?
They're not going to change. They're not going to change. He's going to roll the ball back to him. He's going to have the same problems that James Trafford has had early on in the season. Actually, James Trafford played well at the weekend at Brighton in the loss, made some great saves, otherwise it could have been worse. Was a bit more comfortable with the ball at his feet, took less risks with the ball at his feet, sort of lumped it up the field now and again, which I think we'll see Donnarumma do. I think we'll probably see him take a sort of stuff you attitude to his manager, and when he needs to lump it, he'll lump it because he's not comfortable playing those balls out, and I get that.
I think you saw the difference, or you'll see the difference in experience, because Trafford isn't experienced enough yet to be able to make his own decision when it needs doing. And so Trafford is trying to play passes when they're really not on because he doesn't have that experience. Donnarumma, on the other hand, at the end of the day, will go, okay, if I can't do this, guess what? It's gone 40 yards over there. That's the difference between the two.
Okay. Would any of you pay $100 for chicken nuggets and caviar like Kirk did at the US Open?
No.
Chicken nuggets and caviar.
Yeah, lovely mix there.
100
Very cultured.
caviar. That's shocking. What is he doing? I tell you what, we're paying him too much. He's eating caviar.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but
Why would you even think of that?
I mean, Sid, all you need is a big jamon bocadillo at the pitch and you're done, you're fine, right?
Exactly, and I'll tell you what, you know what? If you're given a choice between chicken nuggets and caviar, I'm going the nuggets every time. the problem in that $100 equation isn't the nuggets, it's the caviar.
yeah, but the trouble is here, you have to question Hurt here. Not just the money, but the money's outrageous. You're just not paying that out of principle. But at what point in your life are you sort of mixing the two?
It's showing that he can afford the caviar now, but he's still grounded with the chicken nuggets.
Wait, at what point do you go, do you know what?
Do that again.
Bit of a mix.
Hold on, do that again. Come on.
He can afford the caviar now, but he's still grounded with
There
the
you go,
chicken nuggets.
That's it.
Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, that's it.
Have you ever even tried caviar?
No, I don't like it.
No thanks. I'd rather eat mince with corn in it.
Oh, yeah,
That's
well,
how
let's
much I
say
hate
something,
caviar.
right?
$100.
$100.
I mean, anyway, let's just move on.
Okay. For the panel, today is Eat an Extra Dessert Day. What dessert do you always have seconds of?
Oh.
I'm not a dessert. I'm more of a appetizer than a dessert.
But if you're to have a dessert, what would sway you?
A really good creme brulee.
Stevie?
Ice cream and peaches, vanilla ice cream.
There's a man of the people.
Yeah.
Ice cream
Tinned
and peaches.
peaches.
Ice cream, tinned
Cream,
peaches.
Tinned peaches, absolutely.
Ian Dark actually in Mallorca tried grilled peach and got very excited about it.
Oh, I've tried that.
Yeah, with ice
Didn't
cream.
like it,
He
no.
did. He did. Sadie, what's your favourite dessert?
I'm just thinking about Steve's dessert. I mean, that you can't call that dessert. That's pudding. That's not a dessert. It's pudding. And I think the answer, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to give you the honest answer. In my case, the question was, which dessert would you have twice? My answer would be all of them.
All of them.
Oh, Sid's a dessert, man.
Yeah, it's got a sweet
Big
tooth.
fan,
Sweet tooth, Sid. All right, guys.
100%.
Strawberry cheesecake. What about a bit of strawberry cheesecake?
No.
No. Then all right. I'll try.
Ooh.
No.
Chocolate ice cream.
I tell you what, though, I did like the sound of a proper jam donut. Long,
With all
long
the sugar.
time. Long time since I had one of them. Proper jam donut. Magic.
Okay. Thank you so much for sending in your questions today. We'll be back soon to do it all over again.